In whose bed did I lie a-sweat as the first thrush sounded, telling myself stories of someone I used to be, hurling myself at the unfamiliar shore, taunting the rock's long shadow, till the waves beat my rage back to Spindrift and my wars came home? The girls who live at the edge of the calm pool where the moon rises teach me to leave dreams alone. Sometimes we drug ourselves with dreams of new ideas. The head will save us, the brain alone will set us free. But there are no new ideas still waiting in the wings to save us as women, as human. There are only old and forgotten ones, new combinations, extrapolations, and recognitions from within ourselves, along with the renewed courage to try them out. And we must constantly encourage ourselves and each other to attempt the heretical actions our dreams imply and some of our old ideas disparage. In the forefront of our move toward change, there is only our poetry to hint at possibility made real. Our poems formulate the implications of ourselves, what we feel within and dare make real, or bring action into accordance with. Our fears, our hopes, our most cherished terrors. The rape will tear you in half, but it will not end you. The cyborg is a creature in a post-gender world. It has no truck with bisexuality, pre-edible symbiosis, unalienated labor, or other seductions to organic wholeness through a final appropriation of all the powers of the parts into a higher unity. In a sense, the cyborg has no origin story in the Western sense, a final irony, since the cyborg is also the awful apocalyptic Telios. People say that ironweed is the symbol for Appalachian women. You know that tall purple flower that's all over the mountains at the end of summer? Have you ever tried to pull it out of the ground? It's called ironweed because its roots won't budge. That's like Appalachian women. The roots are deep and strong in these mountains, and they will fight to stay put. Would I really rather be a cyborg than a goddess? The former hails the future in a teleological, technological determinism culture that seems not only overdetermined but exceptionalizes our current technologies. The latter, nature, is embedded in the racialized matriarchal mythos of feminist reclamation narratives. Certainly, it sounds sexier, these days, to lay claim to being a cyborg than a goddess. But why disaggregate the two when there surely must be cyborgian goddesses in our midst? Now that is an becoming intersectional assemblage that I could really appreciate. You tell me to quiet down, 'cause my opinions make me less beautiful. But I was not made with a fire in my belly so I could be put out. I was not made with a lightness on my tongue so I could be easy to swallow. I was made heavy, half blade and half silk, difficult to forget and not easy for the mind to follow. And it is never without fear, of visibility, of the harsh light of scrutiny and perhaps judgment, of pain, of death. But we have lived through all of those already, in silence, except death. And I remind myself all the time that now, if I were to have been born mute or had maintained on oath of silence my whole life long for safety, I would still have suffered and I would still die. It is very good for establishing perspective. And where the words of women are crying to be heard, we must each of us recognize our responsibility to seek those words out, to read them and share them and examine them in their pertinence to our lives, that we not hide behind the mockeries of separations that we have imposed upon ourselves, which so often we accept as our own. For instance, I can't possibly teach black women's writing. Their experience is so different from mine. Yet how many years have you spent teaching Plato and Shakespeare and Proust? Or another, she's a white woman, and what could she possibly have to say to me? Or, she's a lesbian, what would my husband say, or my chairman? Or again, this woman writes of her sons, and I have no children. and all the other endless ways in which we rob ourselves of ourselves and each other. We can learn to work and speak when we are afraid in the same way we have learned to work and speak when we are tired, for we have been socialized to respect fear more than our own needs for language and definition. And while we wait in silence for that final luxury of fearlessness, the weight of that silence will choke us. The fact that we are here and that I speak these words is an attempt to break that silence and bridge some of those differences between us. For it is not difference which immobilizes us, but silence. And there are so many silences to be broken. And I remember people coming to my mother's yard to be given cuttings from her flowers. I hear again the praise showered on her because whatever rocky soil she landed on, she turned into a garden. A garden so brilliant with colors, so original in its design, so magnificent with life and creativity that to this day people drive by our house in Georgia, perfect strangers and imperfect strangers, and ask to stand or walk among my mother's art. I notice that it is only when my mother is working in her flowers that she is radiant, almost to the point of being invisible, except as creator, hand and eye. She is involved in her work her soul must have, ordering the universe in the image of her personal conception of beauty. Her face as she prepares the art that is her gift is a legacy of respect she leaves me for all that illuminates and cherishes life. She has handed down respect for the possibilities and the will to grasp them. Once I was a mortal beside an ocean, having the names of night, and the first men came, with sledges of fire driving the sun. I was brought forth in the moon pit of a virgin, condemned to light, to a dry world's endless mornings, sweeping the moon away. And wherever I fled, seeking a new road home, morning had harrowed the endless rivers, to nest in the dried-out bed of my mother sea. Time drove the moon down to crescent, and they found me, mortal, beside a moon's crater, mouthing the ocean's names of night.